the Fiat. I don't know if you can hear me, but, well, it's running. And welcome back to Rise of the Fiat, Part 7. Now we'll get to the mechanical work that has been done since the last episode, but I just have to talk about these new wheels. They might be a little polarizing, but as I've said before, we ruin all of our cars here at Janky AF. So these are actually a factory wheel. They're called the Tron wheel, owing to their retro-futuristic look, I suppose, and were standard on the later Bertone cars from about 83 to 87. I love the look of them, and I got them for less than $70. So good of a deal that the shipping was actually more expensive than the wheels themselves. Now they are missing the center caps, which are apparently extremely hard to find, which is because they are extremely difficult to keep from falling off the car. One of the benefits of being janky is we really don't worry about the little things like that. Now, being $17 a wheel, I did have to put a little TLC into them, so I sanded them down by hand just to knock off some of the rough spots, and then sprayed them down with vinegar, both to clean them, and I'm told it will help the paint adhere better to the metal. Then I gave them a nice wipe down, and you can see that they are far from perfect, but again, just perfect for a janky like me. We then gave them 2 coats of primer, and this is just a Rust-Oleum rattle can. I have to say they looked pretty awesome in this matte white finish, but I was worried how they would hold up, and I wanted to see my vision through, so 2 coats of this bright orange on top of that, which I think looks great with the gold, and after all, that is the janky color scheme. And if this wasn't sacrilege enough for you, I finally achieved something I've been wanting to do since I bought this car, which was to put white wall tires on it. I had pretty much given up on this because finding 13-inch white wall tires isn't easy, and when you do, they are very expensive and usually out of stock. So imagine my amazement when I found an entire set for $225. Instead of the stock tire size of 165/70/13, these are 155/80/13, so even narrower than the already very skinny stock tire size. In fact, this is the narrowest tire deemed acceptable to put on a 5-inch wide wheel, which these Tron wheels are. Just for reference, a Corvette C8 rear tire size is 305 in width, so basically twice the width of this one. And fun fact, if you appear janky enough at your local tire store and confuse them and show them pictures of your ridiculous Fiat, they will waive the $170 mounting and balancing fee and instead just let you give them $80 in cash to buy themselves sandwiches and drinks. And to these random heroes we say janky do thanky. Actually did a great job. The jack points for the X19 are according to the fine folks of the wonderful XWeb forum in one of these circled locations, and now here's where it gets real janky. Immediately after doing this, I went out and bought a new jack. This thing belonged to my father's father, a man who flew combat missions in the Pacific in a B-24 bomber, and it's now an extremely heavy paperweight memento. You can see it letting go in the time lapses here, but unfortunately it wasn't just the jack, as it seems that the jack point is beginning to separate from its welding point due to an impressively janked piece of crunchy metal. This is pretty concerning on account of I'm not sure I can put this car on a lift in its current state, but luckily there is a centrally mounted jack point in the rear, so until I can get to a welder, I'll just hope the wheels don't fall off. Luckily, with a little help from a cinder block that just happened to be lying around, I barely got the last wheel on, and just in time because, it's winter. So let's get this thing into the barn and test out those tires in the snow, shall we? And I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but just look at how well this shot is framed. Completely by accident, of course, but you can actually see the car way down in the corner here. Isn't that neat? So please do stick around and we'll go over what exactly the car had done to it mechanically in the shop, and I'll give you a little preview of the next installment of Rise of the Fiat here on Janky AF. Janky do thanky, everybody. Here we go. too. Oh. We're in. Italian motoring at its finest. Alright, welcome back to Janky AF. So if you watched the last episode, you knew that I took the Fiat to a shop and I finally broke down, finally found a shop that was going to work on it. And I said, great, now I had all these parts I had already bought in, clutch master cylinder and brake master cylinder. I was ready to just, throw the kitchen sink at it, and I was so happy I had a shop working on it. The one thing I did not buy was a slave cylinder, and of course that is what it turned out to be, but ultimately that's good news. It was a relatively simple fix, and now as you've seen, the Fiat is running and driving under its own power. So as usual, I have the invoice here in full transparency. We'll go over everything. Removed and replaced clutch slave cylinder assembly, filled fluid and bled system, charged battery, drained and filled engine coolant, clean spark plugs to get vehicle to run. Now I did replace the spark plugs a couple years ago, but we've tried to start this thing so many times that I think they probably just got dirty from all the multiple failed starts. Oh, look at this. Actually, I did supply the slave cylinder. It says customer supplied slave cylinder. Well, I guess I bought that too. Only here on Janky AF, ladies and gentlemen. For parts, we have engine coolant for $24.99, brake fluid for $10, battery. I bought a battery, of course, when I first bought this car, and of course that, sitting out in the cold, hooked up for so long, of course drained. I have a terrible habit of just killing batteries and running through hundreds of dollars. I'm getting better at that now, putting them on tenders or actually taking them out of the vehicle. So it's a learning process here at Janky AF. The labor was $267. Battery was $215. That was honestly one of the biggest costs. So the total breakdown is $267 in labor, $255.56 in parts, for a grand total with tax of $564.36. But that was so much cheaper than I was expecting everything. I'd heard the clutch master cylinder is a real bear to try to get out, so you would think you would have extended labor costs involved in that. In addition, at the very end, I had him driving around just the parking lot. Very, very loud, as you can see in the video, so he didn't feel comfortable driving it on the street, and I can't blame him. He said, do you want me to inspect it? And I said, oh my gosh, red letter day to actually not only have this thing running and driving, but then to have that actual inspection sticker on there, that almighty state of New York sticker on there. I said, absolutely. They inspected it, which it's hilarious that this car has passed inspection now and is safe for the roads in New York State's eyes, but it really is. And I had them flush the coolant, which was great. So it's got new coolant in it after, how many years, new brake fluid in it. The inspection was $10. So tack that on to the end. You're looking at $574.36 to get the Fiat for the first time in, 4 years of ownership almost, actually on the road and driving. So that's absolutely fantastic. Now, obviously we have to do something about the exhaust, because as you heard in the intro, it sounds like, I describe it as, it sounds like a mix of a lawnmower and a helicopter. It's absolutely atrocious. It's even louder in person, if you can believe it. So that'll be the next thing. But so happy to have the Fiat running and driving again. And I'm just counting down the days till spring when I can get it out and address the exhaust system. And speaking of which, that'll sort of lead into the next episode, which will be coming soon here on Janky AF. Very excited for the next episode of Rise of the Fiat. Thank you all so much for watching. Really appreciate it and bearing with us as we nurse this Fiat back to life. I think the X19 has been getting a lot of steady interest lately, generally as a car, as an automobile, as an underappreciated automobile, as an analog mid-engined affordable automobile. And so really, really excited for things to come. So that's it. Until next time, Janky do Thanky. And please stay tuned for the next episode of Rise of the Fiat, coming soon on Janky AF. Let me chalk the Fiat now.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.